Welcome into Fantasy Football Night in America. That's right. You are watching the Better Sports Network's FFPC High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. I am Eric Balkman. You know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Slowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Excited to be with you for the next 2 hours, taking you right in to Thursday Night Football featuring the Tennessee Titans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going to be, I don't know if it's going to be a good one, but it's going to be an interesting one tonight. Welcome in, everybody. I want to welcome in my guest co-host for the evening. You know him for all the contributions he does to the FFPC media over the past several years. You follow him on the X Machine at Dave Terp. It is Dave Terpoilli. Welcome in, Dave.
What's up? I love how you call it the X Machine now. Not Twitter anymore, the X Machine. I like the X better. I love when it pops up on my phone. It gets me into the blood flowing a little bit.
I'm still fleshing it out. I'm trying to figure out, like, follow him on the X,
I love
the
it.
X Machine,
I love it.
whatever. I'm still trying to figure out the best way to do it. But the fact that you like the X Machine, I think that's what we're going to roll with tonight. I want to remind everybody, speaking of the FFPC, you can go to myffpc.com right now and play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. There is no draft. There is no salary cap. You just choose 10 players or 12 players by Sunday's kickoff, and you just watch the scores pile up through the remainder of the Week 9 weekend. Remember, only one player per team. You cannot stack in this format. You can only pick one player per team. That's why there's no draft. That's why there's no salary cap. This is the slant to try to get you to pick the correct players every week. You can enter for as little as $35. You can win up to $2,500. So that is awesome. And it's going on right now at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. In addition to Terp tonight, we also have the wonderful stylings of Anthony Rivera, the man behind the glass, keeping us afloat tonight. On the show, we're going to get you set for Week 9, all the starts and sits and injuries that you need to be concerned about going forward. Bottom half of this hour, we're going to get into the BettorCast. Terp is going to help me make all my picks, my pregame picks, and then obviously as the game goes on, I'll make the rest of the picks myself, and hopefully we can help you out tonight with how we think this game is going to go between Tennessee and Pittsburgh. In the second hour, we're going to find out where Terp stands on certain players, including Tony Pollard, Christian Watson, Justin Fields, and much more. And then to wrap things up tonight, we will get into some starts and sits that you have sent in to us, stuff that you're facing in Week 9. We'll get into that as well while we're watching the Thursday Night Football game, at least the first quarter of the Thursday Night Football game with you tonight. So glad that you are aboard. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to kick things off with, and I was just looking on the X Machine to see if I could find an update on Puka Nacua, Terp. And I don't see an update on whether he practiced today. Now, I know as far as yesterday goes, Puka Nacua was limited. I would expect that he was probably limited again today, perhaps maybe a full practice. What's fascinating about the Rams is, while there's a lot of moving parts in this Rams-Packers game this Sunday, so we may not have Matthew Stafford throwing the ball for Los Angeles. It could be Brett Rippon that is going to be ripping some passes to Kupp, Nacua, Higbee, Darrell Henderson, and the like. So that's factor one. Factor two is the Packers' defense has not been very good this year. I mean, it's been all right. It's been average, but they don't create a whole lot of turnovers. The rush defense for Green Bay is much worse than the pass defense. So you say, oh, you probably won't be able to pass on them. Well, Green Bay just traded the guy who has been playing the best at the cornerback position for him this year in Rasul Douglas to the Buffalo Bills, and they'll be starting seventh-round rookie Carrington Valentine, or at least expected to start seventh-round rookie Carrington Valentine opposite Jair Alexander, who's dealing with back issues and has been dealing with back issues all season. He did not look anywhere close to his normal all-pro self this past week against Minnesota with players like KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison just torching him most of the game. In fact, it got to be the point where Minnesota was actually seeking out Jair Alexander in coverage. So there's a lot of moving parts here. It seems like the Packers' chips are down, but the Rams' chips are down too. When you look at Kupp and Nacua, is the body of work that you've seen from them enough for you to say, hey, I still got to roll these guys out, even if Brett Rippon's throwing to them?
I think the answer is still yes. I mean, it's really difficult to sit or never sit in Cooper Kupp. Puka, I guess you can question a little bit, but we're back into the bye weeks, and these bye weeks are really tough. I mean, you got a lot of teams that with a lot of, especially, receivers, Denver, Detroit, 49ers, teams like that Ayuk, Judy, Sutton, St. Brown, even Josh Reynolds. I mean, some Laporta. We can keep going on a list of guys who are going to be off this week that are going to put you in a little bit of a pickle. So I still think you got to go with, both of those guys, confidently. I mean, if you're telling me like Puka versus Chris Godwin, I'd go Chris Godwin. But like most of the time, you're not getting a chance like that unless you're in a smaller league. In these bigger leagues, the FFPC leagues, you really don't have that opportunity. So you start Puka and you just hope Brett Rippon just lights up, a injured Jair Alexander and a 7th round rookie, because that game should be very, very ugly. We'll talk about the Packers later, but that's a sour subject for Dave.
It's a sour subject for Balky too. But let's talk about this. I should mention this. We don't have to talk about it, but I should mention that the Packers are not only missing Eric Stokes, who's on IR, who should have been the corner opposite Rasul Douglas. They're also missing their first-round pick, Darnell Savage, safety, who's on IR. And the one consistent guy they have on that team, and I use consistent very loosely, has been Rudy Ford, who is now dealing with a calf injury. And that's another. So they are beaten up at the safety position. You could see another 7th-round rookie in Anthony Johnson Jr. Getting a lot of snaps out there. And then if Ford can't go, if Ford can't go, then you're going to see Johnson. You're already seeing Jonathan Owens, a.k.a. Mr. Simone Biles, who is playing safety for Green Bay. Kind of an all-right tackler, doesn't do a whole lot else. So while this is not optimal for the Rams to come into this game, being down Matthew Stafford, they still could put up some pretty big numbers against this Rams.
You might be talking me into a Brett Rippon stream this week.
No, don't do that.
Have you seen some of the court? We'll get there later on some of these start sits, but I was talking to Aiden a little bit ago. Mm-hmm. And some of the guys I'm considering with some injuries and just disgust at the position might surprise you a little bit.
I tried to replace Kirk Cousins on a lot of my teams this week.
But with who? They're all these guys look the same.
So that's my point, Terp, is like I kind of know what you're talking about because I'm looking at the waiver wire and I'm like, geez, there really is.
Aiden O'Connell, Bryce Young, Brett Rippon, Mac Jones. I mean, most of these guys, like the Kyler Murrays of the world, are all taken in the leagues that we play in.
Yeah.
The higher dollar leagues. So it's tough that are you really gonna 1 week Clayton Tune? I mean, Daniel Jones, maybe. I mean, it's real. There's no Sam Howells out there.
No,
there's no guys like that. I mean, you look at Jordan Love. There's some tough spots. If Justin Fields owner like myself, it makes things a lot more difficult.
The other thing too with the quarterback position is I was lucky enough to pick up Gardner Minshew, who is still out there in a couple of my leagues. Yeah. But even he was scooped up, Terp, in a lot.
Every league I looked at, because I started Kenny Pickett in my one FFPC main event the last 2 weeks. You know how that went.
Right, yes.
Not very well. So with Justin Fields still being out, it makes things a little bit more difficult to try to get tricky to just not get so far behind the field because when you're playing teams that are having Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen and Tua, Mahomes, guys like that, you can't be treading out Kenny Pickett and his 5 points last week and expect to win.
Bradley Stalder, who former guest co-host of the show and future guest co-host of the show, chiming in on YouTube right now talking about Will Levis. That's a guy we didn't mention. He was out there in a few leagues, and I tried Terp. I don't know how you are with your blind bidding dollars here in early November, but my chips were down, so I did not have a lot of ammo. I don't think I picked up Levis in any leagues. He was gobbled up for a lot of cash. But I think given what we saw last week, he's an interesting guy to play going forward because hard for me to see Tennessee giving the job back to Tannehill if Levis keeps this up.
I like Levis. I like him coming out of Kentucky. I like him, in that system. The question with Levis is, number one, I don't like him tonight. I think a lot of people are streaming him tonight, and I think it's a massive mistake. I could regret this. I could, this clip could get burned against me, but I think the Steelers are going to beat him up tonight. I think that's just he's not ready for their Thursday night short week, coming off that game where he looked like Joe Montana. He had some ridiculously good throws, but he also had thrown the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, who made him look a lot better on certain throws. So I'm worried about him tonight. Long term, though, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, if he stays around, if they start throwing the ball a little bit more, he has all the potential. He has the arm strength. It's just, can he figure out that, the rookie wall that, eventually guys run into when their teams start figuring him out. Last week was his first start. He looked really good, really impressive, but he's going against a tough Steelers defense tonight. And we're not talking about, a defense like Atlanta who's just kind of, people said like they streamed them last week. Everybody was streaming the Atlanta defense last week against Levis, and that failed miserably. So I like Levis, but I don't know if he's a guy that I could start, long term the rest of the year. His upside to me is capped a little bit in that Mike Brave, the coach doesn't even, believe in him. After last week, how do you even consider going back to Ryan Tannehill? Like, why would you ever put Malik Willis in? I mean, just that one game, like, take a chance. It could save your job.
Yeah. Levis too is a player that loves at least from what I saw, and granted, this is the most anybody's ever seen of Will Levis in the NFL. He was pushing the ball downfield. He was looking downfield a lot.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And a guy like that is hard to find right now. Most of these guys are, the guys who are backups are dink dunk, 5 yards, 10 yards. You're not seeing a lot of these guys push the ball down the field. And he always has people really didn't question. He fell in the draft. That was a big, thing against him. But it's not something that I'm worried about long term. I think he's going to be very good. I would love for a new coaching staff to come in and really work with him. I just don't like the Tennessee coaching staff. Never did. It's just nothing about him. Like the whole hand the ball to Derrick Henry 30 times. This has never worked. It's got him to a certain point, but I feel like that point is done. So Levis long term, like him. Tonight though, I know Brad. I saw a tweet he put out today of Levis over 1.5 touchdowns. Unless the game's a blowout, I like the under there.
Interesting. We'll get into that too with the BettorCast coming up in the bottom half of the hour here. Josh is hanging out on YouTube watching us tonight. Shout out to you, Josh. He's got a couple of trade questions here. And to me, these are kind of open and shut, Terp. He can give up, which one do we like better? Jacoby Myers and Demario Douglas for DK Metcalf, and then Aaron Jones and Rondale Moore for Josh Jacobs. I like both these trades. I don't know if you'll be able to pull them off. You always want to get the best player in the deal, and you are getting the best player in both these deals with Metcalf and with Josh Jacobs. I would do them. If you can make these happen, do them, because then you're consolidating your roster a little bit. Glenn Lowy always says elite talent over everything else, and the most elite talents in these trades are Metcalf and Jacobs, and that's who you'd be getting. Slam dunk, do them both.
I agree. I mean, depth is great, but depth can also get you in trouble in certain formats. I mean, you have 5 receivers and you're picking one to sit every week with an elite, quarterback or whatever. I mean, it can get you in a lot of trouble. So there's always going to be guys on the waiver wire that you can spot start here and there, especially with some tough bye weeks this week and then coming up. I agree with you 100%.
Shifting our focus back to that Packers-Rams game at Lambeau Field Sunday at 1:00. Aaron Jones was limited in practice again today. Second straight day he was limited in practice. He was wearing the red no-contact jersey, and the issue with Jones here is, and I've been saying, like, the Green Bay needs they cannot afford to bring this guy back in 2024. You are looking at a player who absolutely looked fantastic in week 1 against the Bears for 3 quarters. This is the player that I've always said is so underrated in drafts, and you need to get him on your team because he is so talented when he gets to the football. And people let him slide in every single draft. Since week 1, as we now come into week 9, Terp, we are seeing why he slides in drafts, because he has these soft tissue injuries. And Matt LaFleur even said in his presser today that they're doing a deep investigation to find out why the Packers do have so many soft tissue injuries. And I don't necessarily think they have a ton of them, but I think the Packers medical staff is so darn cautious with number one, bringing these guys back, and then number 2, letting them rip once they are healthy. Aaron Jones, like, I don't know if he's healthy right now. I think he is healthy, but I also think the Packers are so it's sort of like a microcosm for their defense. They are so worried about being beaten deep that they play this conservative defense that allows opposing running backs to just chew up yardage against them. And the Packers are so concerned about the big injury to players like Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, or whatever, that they don't allow these guys to have a full workload when they come back. And it's really neutering their fantasy value. Aaron Jones, I said you can make the case a couple of weeks ago, you cannot play him because he's only basically he's healthy he's playing the whole game, but he's playing like half the snaps. And half the snaps for Aaron Jones in a Packers offense that's among the worst in the NFL, is not fantasy worthy. And you probably don't have another option that has the upside of Jones. But man, you could totally make a fairly strong case, and it's getting stronger week by week, that Aaron Jones should be on your bench until he does something going forward.
There's plenty of guys you can stream. I mean, Darrell Henderson, guys like that just, to me, are safer than Aaron Jones. Like, obviously you have the upside with Aaron Jones, but to me, it's like you still have the clog of A.J. Dillon around, who they just love to just hand the ball to for whatever reason. You couldn't have been any more spot on before the season about him. I mean, he's just an absolute disaster right now. I mean, yeah, there's obviously the offensive line's not great. Jordan Love's not great. Coaching staff's not great. We can go all the excuses, but he doesn't look like the same player that I thought he was going to be. Especially coming out of college. His first couple of years, he looked like a potential solid NFL running back. This year, he looks like he's stuck in the mud. He don't look fast. He don't look explosive. He doesn't look like he wants to run over anybody. So, you go back to what you said about Aaron Jones. Like, there's plenty of guys that would start over him. And most of the time, if you have Aaron Jones right now, you're either dead in the water, through 9 weeks, whatever it is, or you found guys that replace him, because I just don't know how you put him in your lineup every week. Yeah, of course, Aaron Jones could go off for 25 points this week. It's in the range of possibilities. But I just think my chances, when it's coming down the stretch and you need wins or you need points, the risk of a 3-point Aaron Jones, re-injuring himself, to me is just not worth it, right now, compared to, some of the other guys could potentially use.
It's weird to bench him, but I mean, I have Terp. You probably have a few teams like this too, where you actually, you hit on guys like, and this isn't a great example right now, but like, let's say a guy you brought up, like Darrell Henderson or Gus Edwards or whatever. Like, you're getting full games out of those guys, and if you are loaded at running back, or maybe at wide receiver, yeah, you can. Sitting Aaron Jones is not the worst thing in the world to do at this point. Because of the workload. It feels weird. It looks weird, but trust me, it's not that weird. Let's go.
The coaches don't trust him. So, I mean, until the coaches show you that.
I don't think it's a matter that they don't trust him. I think it's a matter that the medical staff is in the ear of the coaches saying, you cannot give this guy
what's he out there for? I just don't. That's the stuff I don't understand about the team like the Packers.
Bravo.
Sit him.
Right.
Like, same thing with Christian Watson. If he's not ready, he's ready. Christian Watson's a little bit of a different thing, but
that's
Aaron Jones
thing.
is clearly, if he's not ready, then just put him on IR and get him 100%, and then bring him, unleash him. If not, like, put some rookie in there that has potential that could possibly do something. You're just clogging up. Yeah. You're just clogging, a position right now with pretty much two guys who might not be ready, and it's stuck in the mud, and just ruining your backfield that once was your strength of your team.
Let's go to Twitch right now. Dummy Man Pluto has a trade question. He already has Kyler Murray, C.J. Stroud, and Justin Fields at quarterback. He's got wide receivers Keenan Allen, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Adam Thielen, Michael Thomas, and Tank Dell at wide receiver. He's thinking about flipping Justin Fields for Marquise Brown. Now, I don't know if you have to start two quarterbacks in this league. I hope not, because two of yours are hurt right now, Dummy Man Pluto. But at the same time, if you only have to start one and you're comfortable with just rolling with, because Kyler Murray probably is not going to be ready for week 12, week 13, maybe.
You just don't know. He's right. They're saying he's practicing in full, but like, he's another situation. Why is he not out there?
Right.
A team who's clearly should be trying to tank. I mean, Josh Dobbs wasn't terrible. He actually was okay, and they traded him to put in a rookie and maybe get Kyler Murray. For a team that should be tanking for, Caleb Williams or whoever, I don't know if I could depend on. But the Justin Fields thing is a question too. To me, it's not a bad trade because you're betting on Kyler. Because C.J. Stroud, he's a tough guy to trust week in and week out. In a best ball league, C.J. Stroud has a lot more potential. But we're talking about redraft, and with Kyler, you're pretty much betting on Kyler. And if you're betting on Kyler and Hollywood Brown, I like it. But again, we don't know starting requirements of receivers too. So, like, is Hollywood Brown playing? He's not playing over Keenan Allen. He's not playing over St. Brown. He's not playing over Adam Thielen. So you're down to Hollywood, Mike Thomas, Tank Dell for maybe your fourth. So I would probably say no, but it's close.
To me, I think you have to have two quarterbacks on your team. And if you flip Fields, then you're waiting on Murray, and then it's just Stroud. Fields is closer to playing than Murray at this point.
And Fields has shown you in 2 games this year, he has QB1 upside.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that's what he will finish or be anything crazy like that, because he's obviously coming back off a serious injury where he's missing a couple games. But I don't think that CJ Stroud definitely does not have that.
Yeah.
And Kyler Murray, there's just so many questions. Like, if they just keep losing, I could easily see him like, yeah, I'm just not ready. I'll be back next season. Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know. We've talked about this numerous times before the draft, but if he's practicing in full, what's he not out there for? And clearly there's something.
It's the same thing with Justin Jefferson too. Like, if the Vikings, if they're losing, what's the rush to get Jefferson back? And same thing with the Cardinals.
What's their rush? And if you're Justin Jefferson trying to get a contract, I would, if I had a bet right now, I'd bet that Justin Jefferson does not play another down this year.
Mm-hmm.
And he is not a quitter. He's not a guy but I mean, you just got to use your brain here. I mean, I could easily see him in the offseason requested a trade trying to get out of Minnesota, because that guy's not going to be around for a losing team. He wants to win. He's coming from LSU where he won. The Vikings have been serviceable the first couple of years, but I don't see him, unless they make a big move in the offseason, sticking around and doing that. I could easily see him being one of those diva receivers who try to push their way out of town.
And it might be dependent upon what Kirk Cousins does too, because he's going to be a free agent.
He's going to be a free agent, and it's like they might bring him back, but he's also coming off a major injury and he's older.
Yeah,
I mean, he wasn't great this year. And Jordan Addison takes the next step. They still have Hawkinson. Some young players there that have a little bit of potential. It's just a question of where does that team go from here. Trey Lance made a ton of sense. I don't know why they didn't make that move. As a flyer like Dallas did. That would starting Trey Lance here, giving him a chance for 8 games, 9 games, whatever it is, would make a lot more sense than, I don't even know their starting quarterback, Jared Hall. I have no clue who he is.
Yeah,
no, absolutely.
Ironically, I didn't know this either. I found this out this morning. He was a 6th-round rookie from BYU. He was throwing balls to Puka Nacua last year.
That's wild.
He was Puka Nacua.
I saw him in the game. I'm like, their backup's got to be like Nick Mullins or
that's what I thought.
Somebody like that. Actually, I thought in my brain for a second, I was like, Trey Lance is coming in, right? Because I know they were talking about potentially making that move. And I'm like, who is this Hall guy? Like, I've never heard of him. So it could be a dark end of the season for Minnesota. I know they just got Dobbs. He'll be serviceable, but that division's the Lions right now, as upset as that makes me, because I did say that they will not win the division, but it's pretty much locked up right now.
The thing that's really impressed me with the Lions, well, there's 2 things. Number one, Terp, you and I might even talked about this before the season started. I was of the belief that you want to load up on as many Lions and Vikings, especially those 2 teams, as possible, because I was not a believer in either of their defenses. Yeah. And while it was kind of true in Minnesota, I mean, like Jefferson,
Lions defense has been really good.
The Lions defense, you look at what Green Bay has, and this is the comparison I always make. Green Bay has 8 first-round picks on that defense, and they are not even close.
Close.
They have so much more talent on paper than Detroit's does, but they are not anywhere close to the cohesion and the chemistry that Detroit has. The Lions have drafted players that fit a certain role on that defense, and that's why the defense has been so good this year. I'll take the L on that. I didn't see it coming, and they've been very, very good. And I think
very good.
That they're doing the same thing on offense, which is why Jared Goff has been such a valuable high-end second quarterback. It's why Jahmyr Gibbs has shown us flashes of why he was the 12th overall pick. It's why Sam Laporta is having one of the greatest rookie tight end seasons in NFL history. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is still out there balling. Like that team.
You didn't even mention 2 names that they got for pretty much free in the offseason. David Montgomery was an absolute RB1 monster before he got hurt. He'll be back soon just to, take up plenty of carries right there. And Josh Reynolds, too. Reynolds, everybody said it was Jameson Williams. It was going to be the Jameson Williams show. Josh Reynolds has been a very serviceable wide receiver, too, for that team. Mm-hmm. And literally both got them both for free. So you got to give them credit for what they built. It's definitely a team that's on the rise. That team has a ton of talent. If Jameson Williams figures it out, I mean, I still have my doubts about Jared Goff, as a, Super Bowl, potentially winning quarterback, beating some of the heavyweights in the NFC. But that team, the future is bright. They have a ton of talent, and, they're just playing great football right now.
The thing with the Lions, too, I remember when they were in Hard Knocks a couple years ago, and I looked at what this coaching staff that Dan Campbell had assembled, and it's like 90% all former players. Mm-hmm. Players he played against, former teammates. I'm like, this isn't going to work. Deuce Staley, who apparently has been pretty sought after in the coaching ranks, I look at him and I look at the way he talks and look at the way he coaches, look at the way he approaches his players. And I'm like, how is this guy going to be a successful coach? And you know what? He is a successful coach. And it's blown me away. I could not have been more wrong about the Lions, and they look great. And they're probably going to be very, very good for the next half decade too, the way things are shaping.
I'm going to say one thing about Deuce Staley, because I mean he's a Philadelphia Eagle, and we'll talk about the Eagles later. But Deuce Staley is a guy that fantasy football owners hate. Obviously, he's in Carolina right now with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard and the running back by committee, Drek. That's my worry with him is like he didn't last year. We saw the fantasy owners were tortured by Jahmyr Gibbs. It was never a Jahmyr Gibbs show. So I think Deuce Staley's a good coach, but he's clearly moving around for a reason. And, in the NFL these days, I feel like you got to give one guy the ball a little bit. I mean, think about it. They paid all that money for Miles Sanders, and he has been probably one of the worst fantasy football.
I think he's the backup now, Terp. I think he's a back. I think Chuba Hubbard.
He might not even be the second string anymore. Blackshear's getting touches. I mean, and that team is starting to play a little bit better. Obviously, they got a big win last week, but Hubbard, never was a Miles Sanders guy this year. I just didn't really like him in Philadelphia. It didn't really fit. And he had that monster season last year, but I always look at it if you have that kind of year and your team don't want you back, there's some flag there that you just don't see.
Right.
But Deuce Staley, to me, good coach, but he's moving around for a reason. Players, they might love to play for him, but if you're a position coach, Jahmyr Gibbs, you see what, not Jahmyr Gibbs. I said Jahmyr Gibbs. DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift. Clearly, you see what he's doing in Philadelphia this year. So you see the talent there. And he didn't get anything from Deuce Staley. So we'll see. Jury's still out on Deuce Staley.
Jury is still out. Jury's still out kind of on the Baltimore ground game. It seemed like, obviously it was J.K. Dobbins to start the season. Then he gets hurt midway through that first game of the year. Justice Hill gets the 2 touchdowns. But my God, Gus Edwards, I did not have this on my bingo card. Week 7, he has an 80-yard catch. And then week 8, he has a 3 rushing touchdown performance. It's been insane. Now, he didn't participate in practice yesterday. I believe, if I remember correctly, and I'm going to double check right now, just to make sure I'm not making this up in my head. And I'm feeling I'm a little bit under the weather right now. So I know I'm not thinking totally clearly. He was practicing today, and it was a toe issue, which is something I always worry about.
Definitely a worry.
But when you look at what the matchup for Baltimore this week, and Gus Edwards really has the reign. He has that backfield right now. I mean, Hill's working in. Keaton Mitchell's still not there yet as far as taking a significant share of snaps there. But the Ravens 5.5-point favorites in Seattle. This is a guy not only do I like as a second running back for you this week, Terp, but going forward, I think this is a guy that FFPC players have to seriously look at about, almost looking at him as like an every week flex.
It's not pretty. I mean, with Gus Edwards, you're kind of touchdown dependent. I know he had the 80-yard catch last week that made things, a lot of interesting, got people a little excited, but that's not something I don't think is going to stay around, for a while. It's a matchup dependent to me. In a game in Seattle, could be a muck fest, a game where there's going to be a lot of, running and I don't think a ton of scoring. I see it being a possibility. I'm not as high on Gus Edwards. I think last week was just a smoke and mirrors type of thing. They're still gonna spread the ball around. It's just crazy that Gus Edwards is pretty much ignored in the offseason. It was all the hype guys around him. J.K. Dobbins. We've had the hottest waiver wire pickup in the world. Keaton Mitchell. Everybody was picking him up. All the smarts, and he's never seen the field. Justice Hill has been popular. To me, they're going to spread the ball around. I mean, I think Gus Edwards, matchup dependent, is a guy that you're depending on, but it's really, really hard in a points league to think you're going to get anything close to what you got last week from Gus Edwards. I think he's more of I would say he's more of a 10 and under guy than a 10 and over guy.
Okay,
unless it's the right matchup.
What do you think about the matchup this week at home against the Seahawks?
I like it. I mean, I just that offense to me is like it hasn't. Lately, it's been a little bit better, but I just expected more flash, I guess. I mean, Lamar Jackson has had a good season. I wouldn't say it's a great season. I know a lot of people are saying he's the MVP and that kind of stuff, and it's not really his fault. I mean, the receivers obviously been banged up. Odell's been absolutely useless, also injured. Rashad Bateman has been injured and then also useless. Mark Andrews has been great. Zay Flowers has been, explosive rookie. He's found the end zone once. I'd like to see a little bit more of, him in space a little bit more. But I don't know. The offense to me just doesn't the excitement factor that I expected. Everybody hyped up that the Ravens offense was going to be Chargers-esque, before the season.
Yeah.
Everybody talked about Chargers, Ravens, up and down the field, throwing the ball, not much running type of situation. It's been really good. They're clearly one of the favorites in the AFC, but their defense is playing really well. And Lamar's playing great football. I just expect a little bit more, I guess, from the team. But Gus Edwards to me is, I don't know.
I was with you on the big time passing explosion for the Ravens this year. I did expect more as well. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that it's not like just flipping a switch from Greg Roman to Todd Monken. Zay Flowers has been better than advertised, in my opinion. I mean, he's been awesome. Andrews has been hit or miss, but usually a hit in that offense. Beckham is the thing that's surprising to me is the Ravens don't really misstep a whole lot with contracts and draft picks. And to me, to give Beckham all that money and guaranteed money and to get the output that you're getting from him, I guess I'm a little surprised at that.
It's not even just the output. Like, they're not even targeting him. He's not like I know people saying, "Oh, he's getting some deep pass interferences." That's cool and all, but like, if you're paying a guy that kind of money, you think there'd be plays dependent to him,
right?
Like you'd figure out a way. Odell Beckham, I'm paying him $15+ million a year. Let me figure out a way to get him, 5, 6, 7, 8 targets a game. He's not getting it, and it's very, very surprising. Not that I expected a lot of Odell this year, but I expected some flash plays. Right. I expected some 20-point weeks, here and there. I also expected some 5-point weeks. But he's not giving you anything right now. Right. I mean, nothing. So you clearly know he's frustrated, and it's tough because they're a winning team right now, and you got to hold your emotions in. And Odell's not the third player. He likes to be the center of attention, and he's not right now. So that's definitely something to watch, but Odell, I expected more from him.
Yeah. He was a free agent in like my KFFSC leagues, Terp, where you got to start 3 receivers every week. Yeah. He was available in a few of my leagues, and I still like, there's better options than
I cut him in a bunch of spots this year and this week, and I don't. If he gets me down the road, but I just don't see a path where he gets me. Certain guys you cut and you're just like, man, I didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to cut that guy, but I had no choice for whatever reason. He's not a guy that to me, he's like a Tyler Boyd. Like, where is Tyler? When are you clicking Tyler Boyd's number, in your lineup?
Right. Yeah.
If T. Higgins and Jamar Chase get hurt, are you still clicking Tyler Boyd?
Even then, I don't know.
I mean, you got a healthy Joe Burrow now, but still not clicking that button.
Right.
There's plenty of other guys that probably stream over those two. So when you're coming down the stretch and you're trying to cut people,
right,
you got to ask yourself that question.
LEU 13 hanging out on Twitch wants to know about DeAndre Hopkins. Should DeAndre Hopkins be started tonight? He was hurt. Is he good to play tonight? He is indeed active. I have him in 2 leagues this year. I'm playing him in both leagues, Terp. I like – here's the thing. I saw enough from the connection that he and Will Levis had last week for me to roll the dice to see what he's able to do against Pittsburgh tonight. Not expecting anywhere close to what he did last week, but, to threaten the better part of 70, 80 yards, maybe he gets into the end zone. I think he's worth the start.
100%. You can't the question always comes back to who are you going to sit him for?
Right.
If we're talking about a heavyweight versus a heavyweight, but if we're talking about DeAndre Hopkins versus, I can't think of somebody off the top of my head.
Well, okay.
Jahan Dotson, maybe a name.
Okay.
It's Hopkins slam dunk.
What about Hopkins or Tyler Lockett?
Still Hopkins.
Hopkins or a guy who's playing against him tonight, George Pickens.
Still Hopkins.
And I agree with you totally on this. What about Hopkins or DK Metcalf?
I mean, DK Metcalf did not practice today.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Yuck.
Let's just say they both. I'd probably lean DK, but the thing about Hopkins is that if he's out there and he's close to 100%, he's going to get the targets. Especially Levis. Yeah. You saw last week he's going to be throwing the ball. I mean, I think they're going to get beat up pretty bad tonight, but that doesn't mean he's not going to get a ton of targets. And with him, he can make that big play like he did last week multiple times. So I don't see a path where you ever sit him.
Yeah. You got to be really loaded at receivers.
8-team leagues, maybe 10-team leagues, but these 12-team, main events and, Fantasy Pros championships and all that stuff, I don't see how you ever start somebody over.
You got to play him tonight. I am with you 100%. Get him out there, LEU 13. We're going to get out of here just for a minute. When we come back, Terp and I are going to talk about the BettorCast pregame questions tonight. We'll hit on some over-unders, including but not limited to Najee Harris, Will Levis, Kenny Pickett, the first non-quarterback to score a touchdown tonight. That's always fun. That's coming up. In the meantime, why don't you go to the App Store, go to Google Play, download the BettorCast app for free. You can play along with us. We got kickoff in roughly 40 minutes, from now. So make sure you're getting those pregame questions in, answering all the questions throughout the game tonight. It's going to be a blast. Before then, we got more high-stakes fantasy football show for you. Eric Balkman, Dave Terpoilli here on BSN. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Of the NHL games, I had a conversation with Coop A Fiasco yesterday when we were producing High Stakes, and he was talking about playing video games. And since he covers fantasy football, I said, hey, are you going to be getting the new Madden this year? And he goes, yeah, I don't really play Madden. I play NHL. And that tells you, and it really does, that I do feel that the NHL game is better than Madden. I feel like Madden is overrated. The NHL game is so realistic. I don't know if you guys saw the trailer and all the new additions that they added to this game, but it really looks good. I tried finding all the games that I had of NHL, and I thought I had a lot. I only have 4 of them. And that's because I used to live with my my roommate and good friend who, got me into hockey, and we would play most of it in his house. So he has most of the games, but I do got 21.
There you go.
I got NHL 18. We got Connor McDavid up there. NHL 12, I think, was the start of the new consoles for me. But the big one, the Holy Grail of NHL games. NHL 94 for the Sega Genesis right there. Look at that. Look at that beautiful cover. Look at it. Looks like a VHS tape. That's how good this game was.
No, let me stop you right there. So people, VHS tape, if you don't know, it's this like rectangular black plastic with the magnetic tape on the inside. Tape's this big. You put it in something called a VCR. For a little while, there was something called Beta that didn't last too long.
Look at this cartridge. I mean, they're not cartridges anymore. They're either discs or those little memory cards. But man, that thing is thick, right? And
you don't even need a cartridge or a disc anymore. You can buy the digital version.
And then you got Ron Barr on the book. I mean, he used to be always in the intro telling you about the team and what was going to be happening in the game. So NHL 94 is by far my favorite game, sports game. I love that game.
The High Stakes Fantasy Football Show rolls on right here on the Better Sports Network. Don't forget that with the BettorCast, we are gaming Thursday Night Football tonight on the app. Check out Moose and Keith's game preview of the Tennessee Titans at the Pittsburgh Steelers, including some of their top picks and plays. And then you can compete in our free contest by answering pregame questions, which are live now in the BettorCast app. In fact, I'm going to open it on my phone right now so Terp and I can handle these questions as we go forward tonight. Don't forget, with the BettorCast app tonight during the game too, predict what's going to happen, test your NFL knowledge. You can chat with all our fans about all the big plays, the top performers, all the fantasy busts in real time. There's no purchase necessary. There's no subscription necessary. It is always free to play. Watch Thursday Night Football with us, play our free contest, win tickets. The more questions you answer, the more tickets you win, and you can redeem those tickets for authentic NFL signed gear and collectibles. Download the free BettorCast app right now in the App Store and Google Play. You just have to be 18 years or older. So let's go through this right now. And, of course, I opened up the wrong app. Okay, now I have the right one. So, Terp, we're going to go through the questions that we have on here, and you're going to help me make my picks. We're going to kick things off with Derrick Henry, okay? So Derrick Henry has his rushing yardage set at 70.5 yards right now, 70.5. I'm going to look this up. Okay, before we even answer this, where do you sort of stand on Derrick Henry versus Tyjae Spears right now, Terp?
I wish they would have traded Derrick Henry. It just made so much sense for the future of this team. Get some assets for a guy who in the offseason is not going to get you much. I mean, it seemed like there was a team out there based off the rumors that wanted him. It might have been the Ravens. That was the hot rumor. I would love to see Spears with a full workload, seeing what he has. To me, it's Spears over Henry, but I mean, Henry has some great matchups coming up. We all know about his playoff schedule. But I would love to see more Spears.
We want to know what you would love to see tonight. Derrick Henry under 70.5 rushing yards or over. He is actually he's hit 70.5. He's hit that total 4 times this year. It took overtime to do it against the Chargers back in September, but he went for $122 at home against the Bengals. He went for 101 this past week against the Atlanta Falcons, and he also went for 97 yards and just 12 carries against the Ravens the week before that. You think he hits 70.5 tonight against Pittsburgh?
I think he gets over. I think it's not a big like an 80, 90, 100. I think he gets to like 75, 80. I think it just makes too much sense with the way the game should be played. A muck fest, a game that's not going to be an aerial show. I think you're going to see a lot of running in this game with obviously Pickett being banged up and Levis being a rookie quarterback. I would take the over there.
All right, I got the over locked in for us. Now, Najee Harris, a player that has been very polarizing. And maybe not even polarizing is a nice way of saying it. I think there's a lot of people disappointed with this guy so far this season, especially with the emergence of Jaylen Warren. BettorCast has his rushing yardage set at 45.5 tonight. He has hit 45.5 a few times this year. 65 at Las Vegas in September, 71 the week after in Houston, and then he hit 53 at the Rams a couple of weeks ago. He's had his clunkers, though. 7 for 13 against the Jaguars, 14 for 37 against the Ravens, 6 for 31 against the Niners, 10 for 43 against the Browns. So he's hit it a few times. Does he hit it tonight? Like, man, that Titans rush defense, I know they've been really, really good the majority of the season, but they had a couple of clunkers too where I couldn't believe. I can't remember what team it was, Terp. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago. Some team was just running wild on him. I'm like, is this the same Titans rush defense that was shutting down everybody all year? It's a weekly game here. How does the week turn out for Najee Harris tonight?
I'm on the under here. I think Jaylen Warren, this will be a little bit more of a Jaylen Warren game for me at least. I don't like either of them, a start-sit type of situation. But to me, Najee Harris to me has been awful this year. I mean, I don't see anything that would, justify how much he was getting drafted and how high he was getting drafted. The under is the play here.
I'm doing the under. That's what I was leaning towards, even with a low total like 45.5. George Pickens, let's move to him. More or less than 52.5 receiving yards. Now, this is another guy that has been boom or bust pretty much all season. Yeah. 127 against the Browns, 130 against the Ravens, 107 against the Rams. All great. He had 75 on 4 catches against the Raiders, but he also had 36 against the Niners, 25 against the Texans, and then last week, 1 catch, 22 yards. It was for a touchdown, so it saved his fantasy day at least. But that was it. I think Tennessee can be had through the air. I kind of like the over here. What do you think?
I agree with the over. The thing about George Pickens is he's going to get a couple deep shots, and with his catching ability, he definitely could turn one of these into a 50-plus yard catch that would pretty much get this over. I mean, Deontay Johnson's back. Last week you saw them force feed that man the ball, and he got targets left and right. Still didn't score a touchdown, but we'll get there in a little bit. I think George Pickens takes this over. I think the Steelers win pretty handily tonight. So I think Pickens catches a long one, mixes in a catch or 2 here and there, and pretty easily gets this number.
You think Pittsburgh takes control of this game. If that's the case, what happens to DeAndre Hopkins' receiving yards if Will Levis is forced to play in catch-up mode in the fourth quarter? DeAndre Hopkins, the BettorCast has it at 53.5 receiving yards. Hopkins went crazy against the Colts with 140 yards. He went last week, obviously the big game against Atlanta, 4 catches for 128 yards. Outside of that, his top receiving yardage game was 65. And I think 53. This is a difficult one to predict because we know it's a newish quarterback, but we also saw the connection that he had with Will Levis last week. I guess on this one, I kind of lean towards the over, but I can be persuaded. What do you think? Hopkins more or less than 53.5 receiving yards tonight.
Over here to me. I mean, I just think that with the amount of targets he's going to command in a possible catch-up game, which I'm predicting that he gets this number. Again, the only thing to me that would stop this number is if his injury is something that's serious and, they get up by a little bit and they pull him for some reason. I think he gets this number pretty easily. I would say somewhere in the 75 to 80 range for Hopkins tonight.
To that end, let's shift our focus to Will Levis here. Will Levis has the total set on the BettorCast app, 201.5 passing yards for Levis. Now, we don't really have a big body of work for Levis. He got his first start last week, and anytime we're working with one game of a sample size, it is too small to glean anything off that, in my opinion. Last week, 19 of 29, 238 yards. He threw the 4 touchdowns. Obviously, couldn't have hoped for a better debut, but this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a much more challenging defense than what the Atlanta Falcons put out there last week. It is lower, but he's still got to go over 200 tonight to make this work. Where do you stand on this one, Terp? How do you like this number?
I'm going to stay with what I've been saying the whole time, the under. The thing that does worry me a little bit is there's no Fitzpatrick leading that secondary. He's going to be out multiple weeks. Joey Porter's been playing great ball, helping them on the outside, but he's still a rookie. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is going to command the deep shots, and Will Levis is going to throw the ball up. The question is, last week you saw, a little bit of a couple of fluky catches. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins is a monster. We all know that. But to me, this is an under. I think the Steelers are going to beat him up pretty bad on defense. I could see him somewhere in the 180 range.
The next number is interesting here. Kenny Pickett, more or less than 217 and a half passing yards. Pickett has pretty much hit this number every game this season, except for 2. Not the last 2. He hit it against the Rams. But the debacle when the Steelers went down to Houston and just absolutely got murdered by the Texans.
Bad.
Yeah, that was bad. Only 114 yards in that game. And then this past week against Jacksonville, 10 of 16 for just 73 yards.
Thanks for the reminder.
But sorry, man. But then, the other thing too is like when he's hitting the number every other game, don't we have to assume that this is sort of like in every other game and Pickett's going to go over 217 and a half tonight? I think this is too low. I like the over.
I 100% agree with you. I think it's pretty easily over here in this game. We talked about the Pickens thing, Deontay Johnson. I mean, there's just so many things that he could get there pretty easily early. And if the Titans keep this game close, I mean, I think he can get closer to 300.
The fun one that we'll do now, the first non-quarterback to score a touchdown tonight, Terp. Now, this one we have points assigned to it. Obviously, the rest of these, if you get them right, you'll get 10 points. And then you accrue the points, you move up the leaderboard. First place is going to get a boatload of tickets tonight. So if we're all right and we say it is George Pickens scoring the first touchdown, we'll get 20 points. Same thing with DeAndre Hopkins, 20 if we're right there. Najee Harris, if he's the first one to score, we say Harris will get 15 points. Derrick Henry, 15 points as well. The field is getting us 10 points. Is there any of these guys that stand out to you, bearing in mind that, and I should have this in front of me, the point spread on the game is the Steelers by 3 in this matchup with a total set at 36.5. The first non-quarterback to score a touchdown tonight, should we lean towards the Steelers, and if so, which one? Or what are you thinking?
I'm leaning toward the field here. I think this is the time for Deontay Johnson. I think he scores the first touchdown. I think he finally gets in the end zone. He finally breaks one of the craziest streaks in sports right now with a talented player, obviously like he is. Should have had one last week. Obviously coming back off injury, looks just as explosive as he did. I'll take the field here. I was hoping for a little bit more. I was thinking about just going Pickens, but to me, it's the field. I could see it Jaylen Warren. I could see possibly Deontay Johnson. The possibilities are endless. It won't be Najee Harris.
Ben Roethlisberger still the last quarterback to complete a touchdown pass.
That's insane. I saw that on Twitter today, and I was like, that can't be real. Just absolutely. I feel like Big Ben's been out of the league for 10 years.
Well, didn't Keyshawn Johnson have that long streak where he went for forever without scoring a touchdown too? That was another
It's crazy.
one.
And you think as a coaching staff, like, hey, like, let's get creative with some designs. Let's maybe figure something out. Like, I know the quarterback position hasn't been great for the Steelers, the last couple of years, but Deontay Johnson's just too talented for the targets he commands. We're not talking about Allen Robinson out there. We're not talking about Calvin Austin. We're talking about one of the best receivers in football. Get the guy in the end zone. Figure it out.
Yeah. Let's go on to which team will win the game. Now, we've been predicting a Steelers victory here tonight. You think it's handily. Now, the Steelers, if we're right, we'll get 10 points. If we choose the Titans, we get 15. But to me, that doesn't – it's not enough of a carrot to dangle in front of us. We're still taking the Steelers here, right?
Steelers by double digits.
Okay, so we're going with Steelers. Next one, over-under, 36.5. I just said it. Do you like this? If the Steelers going away is fine, but Tennessee would still have to score in order for this over to hit. What are you thinking as far as the total goes on tonight's game?
I think this is going to be close. I think this could be like a 27-7 type of game. Steelers just pretty much just beating up the rookie quarterback. So I'll take the under. Not with a lot of confidence because I could easily see like a cheap touchdown late getting over and just, pissing off the people who had the under in a game that should be clearly under. But yeah, I'll go under. Usually I'm not an under better, but I'll take it.
I think the under is a smart play tonight. It's like Thursday night football. I feel like a lot of these.
Yeah, most Thursday night games have been absolute slop fest. I mean, last week was a little bit, okay, I guess, but not really. It's kind of been ugly.
Terp, the last one here that we are going to get to is which team is going to score first. We're getting even money on this. Titans plus 10, Steelers plus 10. We're taking the Steelers, right?
Yes, we are.
All right. We think we got them all locked in now. Yes. Wait, no, we don't. What am I missing? No, we got them all locked in.
Yep. Sound like.
Yep. We got them all locked in here. That is just the pregame questions. Again, more questions are going to be popping up on the BettorCast, actually usually a little bit before kickoff too. So make sure you have that app open and enjoy your two-screen experience tonight with the BettorCast app that you can download for free in the App Store and Google Play. Going back out to Twitch here from Priceless Pigeon, would you trade Jacoby Myers for DK Metcalf? I would. I would rather have Metcalf on my team the remainder of the season. I know Myers has been sort of a target hog, but now you have a brand new situation in Las Vegas. New quarterback, new head coach, new OC,
new everything.
New GM, new everything.
Devontae Adams, who you know is going to get 1 million targets a game.
Yes.
They're going to try to keep the guy happy. I could easily see him going 150, 200 this week. If you like, popular bets on sports books, he is a guy that, should put up big numbers. And Myers can still get his but I could see Michael Meyer getting a little bit more, in the offense more. Obviously for whatever reason they weren't using him the last couple games. Austin Hooper, but we'll save that for another day.
The other thing too is Antonio Pierce is now the new head coach for the Raiders, and to me, Terp, I don't think he's that much removed from being a player in the NFL.
He's not.
And I feel like as a player that is still so close to the game as a player, he's got to understand a big reason why he has the head coaching gig is because his predecessor could not get the ball to their best playmaker on the roster. So I'm with you on this. Should be a cavalcade of Adams action this week.
I think Pierce is going to be a really good leader of men. He's the guy that's going to be a rah-rah guy, in-your-face guy, like he's going to hold you accountable, all that stuff. That's what he did on the field. The question is, can he coach? That's always the question with these guys when they take over midseason is like they're sexy names and like they were in the league and all this stuff, but like can they X's and O's? I mean, good teams and good coaches will destroy them X's and O's if they can't figure it out. Again, you're talking about a whole new staff midseason. That's really hard to do, and a rookie quarterback.
What's bizarre to me, and I was listening to somebody talk about this today. So 2 nights ago, you had in the middle of the night, the owner of a team decides to fire his head coach and his GM. The very next day, he lets go of his offensive coordinator. Then the new head coach decides we're going to start this rookie quarterback with 1 start under his belt. And of course, when we look at what our friends in the desert are saying about this game, they have deemed that Aiden O'Connell, Antonio Pierce, and the Las Vegas Raiders are 1.5-point favorites this week.
I'm starting Aiden O'Connell in one league, very high dollar league. Yes, I am.
Why?
I just have a feeling. Again, we talked about earlier in the thing. Bryce Young, Aiden O'Connell,
okay, I get
Jordan Love. I mean, we're not talking about like household names. Like I can't go through the Kenny Pickett experience, even though I like him tonight. I went through it the last 2 weeks, and I literally want to poke my eyes out. So something about Aiden O'Connell this week. I think Devontae Adams is going to go off. I can see Jacoby Myers getting there. The Giants would have Daniel Jones back, so that'll make them a little bit more feasible on offense. Saquon, I think that game could be a little bit up. I like where it's at, obviously being at home. Something about Aiden O'Connell this week is a stream. It's just we could be talking about this on Monday, and you could be like, you idiot. But something about him this week. I would take him over Bryce Young, and I don't know if that's a thing on Bryce Young, but I just like this game for some reason.
We'll see what happens. Because I should look at the total on that game too.
Trust me, I would rather not be starting Aiden O'Connell this week.
37.
The options are very, very limited.
A couple of topics that we didn't get to in the first segment, I want to go back to. Another running back that's dealing with a toe injury and clearly not handling it as well as Gus Edwards, or maybe it's more significant than Gus Edwards, is Amari DeMercado. He did not practice yesterday. He did not practice again today, Terp. 21 touches is what he saw in the loss to the Ravens in Week 8. And I would imagine that if he was healthy enough, the Cardinals would be very comfortable giving him a bunch more touches against Cleveland this week. The fact that he has not practiced yet is certainly concerning. And even if he's active, I think you have to walk the line with some trepidation here, given that he's clearly not healthy fully, and he's dealing with one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL in the Cleveland Browns, a very talented defense just as a whole this year. If he's not active, would you look at Damian Williams or Keontae Ingram, or is it DeMercado or nobody this week for you?
It's DeMercado or probably nobody. I could maybe get talked into Keontae Ingram in a spot that, like, I was without ETN or without McCaffrey or maybe without both of them. I guess I can see a path to get there, but I mean, that defense they're going against is extremely tough. I mean, and they clearly don't like Keontae Ingram, because his first game, he looked very good. He was the lead back. Everybody picked up DeMercado. He didn't even play, didn't do anything. Everybody cut DeMercado, spent all the fab money on him, and then he's been the star since. So something about that team, it's just like, Damian Williams, are you really going to start Damian Williams? You're never doing that. Ingram at least gives you some sort of jolt, I guess you could say. But I'd probably staying away. If I'm desperate, it's Keontae Ingram. But I don't think you're going to see DeMercado this week. I mean, toe injuries, like you talked about, they could be a little funky. The team has really nothing, obviously to play for except to lose. So this could be an Ingram show. You could do worse. Not somebody I'm going to recommend playing though.
Mm-hmm. Another running back situation, and this was kind of a bizarre one this past week. We were told that, or it was reported that Jerome Ford was dealing with some version of a high ankle sprain, and he ended up going this past week. And now, and that was they gave him double-digit touches, 10 touches for 39 yards. He ended up starting off slow. Pretty much all his damage was in the second half. And now you look at this game against the Arizona Cardinals. We were just talking about it. There's Pierre Strong there. There's Jerome Ford. There's Kareem Hunt. Is Ford a guy that you would utilize in your FFPC lineups as one of your flexes this week?
Probably. I mean, it's a good matchup against a bad team. The game flow should be in their favor, even though Deshaun Watson looks like he's starting possibly. I don't know if that definitely probably doesn't help him because he's looked dreadful this year. PJ Walker looks like the better option right now, as weird as that is to say. But the matchup, it looks good on paper. I think you have to go with that. But the same question comes back to, like we talked about the Packers. Like, Jerome Ford looked really good this season. Obviously, before he got hurt in camp, he was the camp darling. So what are they doing playing him coming off a bad ankle injury? Like, that didn't make any sense why he was out there for 10 snaps last week, even though he got there in the second half a little bit. Kareem Hunt and Pierre Strong could win you a game. Why risk a talented young player who could be playing for a long time with the uncertainty with Nick Chubb, going into next year? It just didn't make any sense to me. I'm starting him in my flex in one of my fantasy pros league, which is I have an absolute wagon building right now. He's a guy that I have in there and confidently in there, and I'll definitely be starting this week.
The last thing I want to bring up here, Dameon Pierce did not practice again today. This is 2 straight practice or 2 days in a row. he missed practice. The Texans beat writer Aaron Wilson said that the team is actually thinking about just having him skip a game so he can let this ankle injury heal up, fully or much more significantly than it has been right now. That's fine, and I get that. But if that does happen, Devin Singletary, you would like to think, would be getting a lot of the touches. And I don't think you want to be rushing to start him against that Tampa rush defense that is allowing the second lowest EPA per rush attempt this season. However, Singletary always seems to get involved catching the ball, and that's what we love as high-stakes players. We love full PPR leagues, these second running backs, these RB2s, RB3s that can catch balls out of the backfield. Singletary, to me, becomes very intriguing if Dameon Pierce misses this week.
I agree 1,000%. I mean, he's a guy that you pretty much have to start if Pierce is out. I know the Bucs defense is one of the best in football, especially against the run. You just gave the numbers there that made the case, pretty much set in stone. But it comes down to Singletary versus certain matchups. Like if you're starting him at running back, we all know the running back position has been really scary bad this year. Mm-hmm. There's been some potential, but if you're give me a matchup of Keontae Ingram versus Devin Singletary, I'm taking Devin Singletary. If you're giving me Aaron Jones versus Devin Singletary, I'm taking Devin Singletary. And that's, people might think that's a little crazy because the name's attached to it, but he's a guy that could get every touch almost. Clearly the coaching staff loves him. He's been getting a lot of touches lately. Dameon Pierce has not been good. He's obviously been banged up a little bit lately. So to me, if Devin Singletary is on your team, why is he on your team if you're not going to use him this week? He's in there. Again, if you're playing a matchup and it's like Devin Singletary versus Brandon Cooks, I'm just using a random one. You're starting Devin Singletary. Obviously with bye weeks, it makes things funky, especially with, Ridley and Kirk and Ingram and Ayuk and Kittle and Judy, Sutton, guys like that are all out. St. Brown, we talked about Laporta, Gibbs, all these guys are out. You're going to probably have to use Devin Singletary. And if he's on your team and you're not using him this week, well, why is he on your team?
Yeah, this is why you have him for games.
The matchup sucks. The matchup sucks. Yeah. But if Devin Singletary should get you 14, 15 points this week, and if you're telling me he can get me, I'm starting him all the time, every time.
I shouldn't say this is why you have him on for matchups like this, for situations like this. When Pierce is out, this is when you want to deploy Singletary. Couple of Twitch questions, and I want to get to them because the game is going to kick off in about 12 minutes. Patriots Super Bowl bound wants to know a flex question. Deontay Johnson, Michael Pittman, or Terry McLaurin. Leaning towards Deontay Johnson so they have someone to watch tonight. I actually kind of like Pittman at Carolina out of this trio. I know you said you think Deontay Johnson finally breaks the streak tonight. Who would you play if you could only play one of these guys between Johnson, McLaurin, and Pittman, Terp?
Pittman's going to be the popular name, but I'm still going with Deontay. I just feel like he's just a target hog. He gets in the end zone tonight. I don't like Scary Terry this week. I mean, last week was a great matchup against the Eagles secondary that's been very suspect this year. That made a ton of sense. This week, not really. Bill Belichick likes to muck games up. I'm staying away there. To me, it's Deontay.
Another one here from Yeet56. Hey, fellas, full PPR at flex. Deontay Johnson or Amari Cooper? Amari Cooper, we talked about the Browns and Cardinals quite a bit tonight, but that's who he has this week. Probably P.J. Walker throwing to him. Maybe Deshaun Watson. I don't know. I mean, like you were saying before, we just don't know. It's too early in the week to say it. Last week with P.J. Walker, Amari Cooper got 11 targets. 6 of them he caught for 89 yards, scoreless catches last week. So I think I think you're gonna say Johnson. I'm gonna say Deontay Johnson here over Amari Cooper as well.
I agree 100%.
That is going to wrap up tonight's first hour of the show. As a reminder, we got in all of those BettorCast selections. We are locked and loaded, waiting for the next questions to pop up in the BettorCast to make sure that there's no live ones that I'm missing right now. And there actually is. How will the Titans end their first drive of the game, Terp? Touchdown, field goal, turnover on downs, fumble, interception, or other? Their first drive of the game. What are we saying?
3 and out.
3 and out. All right. So that's not even
punt.
So that's got to be other. No, I don't. Punt's not an option. Touchdown, really? Field goal, turnover on downs, fumble, interception, or other. We're taking other, right?
Other. Got to be other.
All right. We're going with other. Okay. Now, unless turnover on downs means punt, I don't know. To me, it just means they went for it on 4th down. That is tonight's BettorCast. Don't forget, the Monday Night Football BettorCast becomes the Monday Night Football BenderCast. Fantasy Alarm is taking over the BettorCast app for Monday Night Football. You can join Howard Bender and the Fantasy Alarm family for BenderCast. Tailgate party, pregame prop questions, special guests, live chat, and our free-to-play contest throughout the Jets-Chargers game. Be a part of the BenderCast Monday night by downloading the free BettorCast app available in the App Store and Google Play. Where does Terp stand on certain players? And I know this is gonna hurt. Some of these names are gonna hurt.
Blood will be flowing throughout
blood
this.
Will be flowing
I looked at this morning and I saw some of these names on here, and we're gonna have some passionate conversations.
It's gonna be fun. Antonio Gibson, Trey McBride, Derek Carr, Brock Purdy. We're going to get into all those players and many more. You are watching the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on the Better Sports Network. He's Dave Terpoilli from the FFPC. I'm Eric Balkman from the FFPC, the HSFF, or the Road of His High Stakes Lowdown. We kick off hour number 2 as well as your 2-screen experience next, right after this.
The Bears have to be one of the most inept franchises of any sport I've ever seen in my entire life. And they share the city with the White Sox, who are also inept. Like, that is how bad the Bears are. I just don't understand how you can go your entire existence and the quarterback that wins you a Super Bowl is Jim McMahon. You couldn't find anybody else.
They don't have a good history with quarterbacks, but they let him be the quarterback for a long time, too.
Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you drafted Mitch Trubisky. They were right there. I there's a lot of pain in being a Falcons fan. The Bears are one of the teams I could argue they might have it worse, and they have a Super Bowl.
And
when the best quarterback in the past 50 years is Jay Cutler, you have a problem.
That's so funny that you just said that. We were talking about Jay Cutler the other day, me and my friend, and I was like, yeah, he was on, because we were watching the Colorado Rockies game against the Giants, and it looked like he was behind the thing. I was, yeah, well, he played for Denver most of his career. We looked it up. Chicago let him be their starting quarterback way too long.
Here's the thing, too, is that Jay Cutler wasn't bad. Like, he was erratic. He wasn't terrible, though.
The poor man's Brett Favre.
I'm taking him over Justin Fields. I'm sorry.
I would.
But
yeah.
Jay Cutler led that team to an NFC title game.
Yeah.
That they lost to Green Bay. But he's gotten farther than anybody else. You want to know who the other starting quarterback was for the Bears in the other Super Bowl appearance they made? It was Rex Grossman. What are we doing out here? It was Rex Grossman and Kyle Orton was the backup. How are you that bad? Bro, like, oh my God. Listen to the top 5. According to Football Reference, the top 5 greatest Bears quarterbacks of all time. Jay Cutler, number 1.
I can't believe it.
Sid Luckman, who last played in 1950, is number 2. Jim Harbaugh is number 3. Jim McMahon, the Super Bowl winner, is number 4, and he played there for 6 years. And Mitch Trubisky, is number 5 on the list as terms of passing yards go.
It's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on Better Sports Network.
High Stakes Fantasy Football Show rolls on here. Hour number 2 coming at you on the Better Sports Network. We're going to have plenty of action here in the second hour as we are going to be taking in this Steelers-Titans game until the top of the hour. And that's when the best of the Better Sports Network will take over the airwaves. Hello and welcome back, everybody. Eric Balkman from the FFPC, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Road of His High Stakes Lowdown, being joined by my partner in crime here, Dave Terpoilli, FFPC media contributor extraordinaire, social media pain in the ass, as I believe you have called yourself.
That is 100% accurate. They've toned me down this year. Aiden's running the show.
That's true, yeah. Check him out on the X because he still runs that account, at Dave Terp. A lot of good stuff there, a lot of fun stuff. The FFPC Weekly Challenge is open, has been open the last few days for Week 9 in the NFL. No draft, no salary cap. There's no convoluted rules with this. It's basically the exact same format as our very popular FFPC world famous playoff challenge. You can play in a 10-team contest, a 30-team contest, a 100-team competition. Pick your players and watch them pile up the points throughout the weekend. The results are determined by the total points accumulated by each individual entry. You can play the classic format with kickers and defenses, the slim format without kickers and defenses. $35 is the entry fee. You can also play for a $200 entry fee, and there's a contest for everyone in this. New users are going to get $25 off their first FFPC entry of $35 or more, which would be this competition. Use promo code ALARM at myffpc.com. That's promo code ALARM, ALARM, at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Terp, you been doing any of the weekly challenges yet this year?
No.
No? We got to get you back.
I've actually looked into it last week. I was start playing around a little bit, but Sundays are a little bit more busier for me these days.
I get it. Yes. And by the way, was this your daughter's first Halloween?
It was her first. She was born November 20th last year, so it was her first Halloween. She was Cinderella. I was Prince Charming. The wife was a fairy godmother. It went as well as it possibly could. She was very excited, very into it. We had a good time.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that. One of these years, I told my son when I put him to bed Halloween night, I said, one of these years it's coming up that you're just going to want to go out with your friends trick-or-treating and I'm just going to be left at home, which sounds good, but I will miss those times.
That's what I'm saying. I'm really, Halloween's one of my favorite holidays. I love dressing up. We have some creative costumes down the road that we're thinking about. So it's definitely a holiday that when she gives me the boot, I'll be sad about.
Right. Exactly. Well, speaking of giving the boot, I don't know if anybody has officially given James Cook the boot off their roster, but maybe out of their starting lineup because of his performance, because of the Bills are using him, the way the Bills are using him, and the fact that Leonard Fournette, Lombardi Lenny, just joined the Buffalo Bills practice squad. Now, we don't know if he's going to be active this weekend. Last year, he had just under 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns, basically leading the Tampa Bay backfield. Latavius Murray has done nothing to instill confidence. In fact, I think I might have cut him in a few leagues too. That might come back to bite me, but he hasn't been looking good in the role that
I don't see how that. We talk about players coming back to bite you. If Latavius Murray gets you, he gets you.
So be it. But where do you stand on James Cook? Based on what we've seen from Murray, now Fournette, and what we've seen how the Bills are using James Cook. Where do you stand on him right now, Terp?
It's just not pretty. I mean, they're not using him exactly the way that people thought they were going to do. Latavius Murray has been annoying. They just signed Leonard Fournette, so clearly they feel something about the running back room right now to sign a guy pretty much off the street who hasn't played in almost a year now. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's definitely a worry. It just comes down to based off your roster, like you have James Cook versus Darrell Henderson. He's a popular name I keep using. It's like you're probably getting the same amount. I think Henderson gives you a little bit more right now. I mean, obviously Cook has the big playability, but the Bills, for whatever reason, just don't want to get that ability out there. I thought he was going to catch more passes. I thought he was going to be more, in the run game. I thought he was going to get more touches, and he's just not. And I don't see that changing. And it just seems like bringing Fournette in could be the final nail in James Cook's coffin.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing about it, because he had some good games this year. He can get it.
But nothing great.
Nothing great. Yeah.
Nothing like getting drafted and he's getting steamed up by the end of the draft season. Mm-hmm. I mean, you expect some 25-plus games, and you just haven't got it. And you've got a lot more games on the lower half that have made, matchups that seem just too good to be true that, again, we're getting another, a potential high-scoring game this week. It makes a ton of sense, but I think you're going to get let down again.
Speaking of being let down, Antonio Gibson, a guy that, 2 years removed from when people are saying he's the next McCaffrey? That did not age well. He is just wallowing behind Brian Robinson and, quite frankly, Chris Rodriguez a little bit now too. In the Eagles game this past week, 2 carries, 14 yards. He caught 5 balls for 28 yards, which is great. But I don't think he's getting enough volume where you can look at Gibson and say, okay, I can flex him out this week. I think you're really playing with fire if you do that. However, if God forbid Brian Robinson ever went down or anything happened to him, that's the reason I still have Gibson on the 2 teams I have him left on, or 1 team or whatever it is. Because if Robinson goes down, then you can start Gibson. But Terp, until then, Antonio Gibson needs to be on your bench, and quite frankly, you can make the case for cutting him.
It's really hard to. I mean, he was one of my highest owned guys. A very painful topic to bring up. I looked at this list when you sent it, and it brought a lot of sadness to my face in some names. This is definitely being one of them. I mean, I expected more. I expected him to be used more in the past game. I was totally wrong on this backfield. I mean, Brian Robinson's not a guy that. I mean, he's tailed off a little bit lately, but he's not a guy that I've owned much of. I just didn't think he was going to be. I don't really think he's overall as good as he's shown. Definitely take the L there. But Gibson, I mean, there's just nothing that makes me think, hey, this guy's going to, even if something happens to Brian Robinson, this guy's going to magically get, a higher workload. You're right, though. With the scarcity at running back right now, it's hard to cut a guy like this. I mean, most fantasy football high stakes drafters right now are keeping very limited receivers on their bench, limited tight ends, probably one quarterback, maybe two, just because of the injury history. If you don't have one of the top ones, and just loading up on these Tank Bigsby's, Kendry Millers of the world that you just don't want to put out there. And then, God forbid, something happens to one of the guys above them, and then you just cut a guy that could be, a potential $1 million winner down the road. So that's where the hard part is. I mean, you put a guy like Zach Charbonnet, another perfect example, has done nothing all season, but now he's starting to get steamed up a little bit. Coach is talking about him. Kenneth Walker's been banged up. These guys you just got to keep on your bench and just hope. Maybe get a week or two, maybe get a stretch at the end of the season if you're still in it. But Gibson is he's shown me nothing this year that makes me fumbling early in the season, put him in the doghouse. It's a sad state of affairs right now in Washington.
Speaking of a sad state of affairs, and I hope I don't hit a nerve on this one, but you are one of the biggest Tony Pollard fans for fantasy purposes. A guy that you said, man, if they ever got rid of Elliott and he ever became the lead back in that offense, that's the type of guy who could be the number one overall running back, could be a top 5 pick. And he's getting the touches this year. He's not, and I know he's been banged up too. The efficiency hasn't been there. This past week, Tony Pollard, 12 carries for 53 yards against the Rams. And that's the 4th straight week in a row that he was under 40 yards on the ground, but he's had 170 plus receiving yards. He is going to be playing the Eagles this week, and you got to keep rolling him out there, obviously. I mean, the upside's there, but, man, when you get 12 touches for 53 yards and scoreless against the Rams.
Let's not talk. The team put up 40-plus points.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's not even like the game was a blowout, and you're like, all right, it makes sense. Like, just the game flow wasn't in the – it's been pain. Like, the last couple of weeks, like, as being a big Tony Pollard owner like I have, I expected more creativity. I expected more of the stuff that you saw last year. Obviously, he's no offensive coordinator. I get that with no Kellen Moore there. But, like, I just think that, like, until recently, that the offense is just a little stale. I mean, they weren't getting the ball to CeeDee Lamb. Like, that changed, obviously, this week. Dak looked great against a banged-up defense, in for the Rams. But Tony Pollard right now is just killing me. I can't say anything else besides that. I mean, he is – I still think he's exactly what I think he is. It's just a question of just unlocking him. They have some, good matchups coming up. It won't be this week. The Eagles are very good against the run. I don't see him getting, unless they institute him in the passing game, which is a possibility because the Eagles aren't very great against, pass quarterbacks right now. So with the linebackers being very suspect, I could see Tony Pollard catching a touchdown this week. But I don't know. It's painful. It's definitely hitting a nerve. He's one of the guys, Antonio Gibson. There's another guy coming up here very soon that are the 3 guys that are really hitting the nerve more than anything. There's a lot of positives, but these 3 guys are making me lose sleep at night.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you can't – I mean, can you pinpoint it with Pollard? Like what the issue is?
The offense is starting to play better. Like last week is just the toughest. Like if you didn't watch a second of the 1 o'clock games and you looked at that box score, you're like, that's a 25-point week for Tony Pollard. There's no way around it. And to look at the box score and see none of the above, it's really hard to stomach. So many times, like early in the season, you were seeing guys like Rico Dowdell, get carries around the goal line, just stealing touchdowns. It was annoying, just being an absolute annoyance. They're just not running the ball well. And it's worked out for them. They're obviously, one of the best teams in the NFC right now, but I'm just very, very shocked that they just can't figure it out, especially because their offensive line is very good.
What about Joshua Palmer, a guy that I really liked. In fact, I loaded up on him last year because I didn't think Williams and Allen would be able to stay healthy all season. And then I thought, okay, Palmer's one of those weird guys where he's sort of like the injury away type guy. I normally refer to running backs like that, but he's a receiver who was like that. And then what did the Chargers do? They went out and drafted Quentin Johnston in the first round this year. So
that's worked out well.
Yeah. Well, and he Johnston did come on a little bit this past game. We'll see if that continues. But the interesting thing here is Palmer did not practice today. Now, because they have the Monday night game, this is sort of like their Wednesday. So maybe it's not a huge thing. But the fact that he already came into last week's game with a knee injury, he is missing now time because of a knee injury. I don't really know, if and we'll see the practice reports. But even if he's healthy, is he a guy worth waiting around for to see what he can do on Monday Night Football? Where do you stand on Joshua Palmer right now? Sort of in a long-term sense too, Terp.
Long-term, I love him. I mean, long-term, I'm really excited about him. I mean, I said before the season about Quentin Johnston, and I'm mad at myself for I didn't load up on him or anything like that, but I didn't like him coming out of TCU, but he landed in the nut spot. He landed in the perfect spot, we thought. Mm-hmm. But he's just not a good NFL receiver, and I don't see it changing. Yeah, you see some flashes of catching 3-yard passes and going 10 yards, but we'll save that. But Joshua Palmer has looked very good with Justin Herbert. But this week, he had that really, really injury. It looked like it was going to be really, really bad. I mean, he hobbled off. It looked like the season was over. I texted Aiden, I remember saying, because I needed Joshua Palmer on Monday night and just was devastated of potentially losing another guy, another injury. He did come back, only caught one pass afterwards, but he still played a lot of snaps, which is encouraging. I think he'll be out there, but he's also in a very, very tough matchup against a good Jets defense. So if you're waiting around, I would pick up somebody in the late 8:00 games that might make sense. Or, I mean, if you're looking at the Jets, who you picking up on the Jets? So that answers nobody. And it's not like maybe a Donald Parham or something like that, as a flex option if you can use it to back up Palmer if he doesn't play. Quentin Johnston's probably not available. It's a big risk, but it's just tough because you're getting close to the end of the season, so you're risking a 0 in a potential game that might not be that high scoring with Zach Wilson on the other side. Might be suspect.
The suspect we're going to talk about next is a guy who's been MIA in Green Bay lately, and that's Christian Watson, a player that got his rookie season off to a slow start because of injuries, and then he just went ham. I mean, what was 7 touchdowns in 3 games or whatever it was, something like that. He was unbelievable, Terp. Fantastic end of the season last year. And then this year, man, again, he starts off slow because of the hamstring injury. 3 catches for 33 yards on 8 targets against the Vikings this past week. Been very close to connecting on some passes. Some Jordan Love's fault, some Christian Watson's fault. He wasn't fighting for him enough. A guy that we know he's a phenomenal athlete. Is he a phenomenal receiver? Jury's still out on this one, but it's trending towards no right now. Christian Watson, a very frustrating guy to have on your team right now.
He's killing me. I mean, if I had to put one guy on the seat before the season that I would bank on a lot of money, it would have been him. I just love everything that I saw last year. The matchup, everything that obviously it was with a different quarterback. I was on the Love train. The Love train's starting to crash. He just hasn't been great. The offense hasn't been great. It's been kind of stale. He's not really fighting for balls. Like I watched a clip on Twitter this week of a bunch of throws that were around him that he kind of was just half-assing a little bit to get to him. The plays that you saw last year with the deep threats just aren't there. I mean, I don't. But the problem with Christian Watson is just the week will come. I'm confident the week will come, but are you starting him? And is that 30-point breakout week going to be? Now, remember I said Najee Harris won't score the first touchdown.
He did.
You want us to know who scored the first touchdown?
Najee Harris, 10-yard carry. Chris Boswell, extra point is good. 7-0 Pittsburgh, 10-11 to go in the first quarter.
That's just funny. I wish somebody could just bet the stupidity of me sometime. But anyway, back to Christian Watson. Then we're talking about stupidity. It's just been a tough road. I mean, I saw Nelson Sousa, a guy who's been, in the high stakes leagues for a bunch. He put something. Sometimes you just want to sit a guy in a league and just hopefully that'll give him a little juice to perform on your other teams. You just don't want to sit them everywhere because you don't want that breakout week. But and I answered the question with Christian Watson. He really stepped up for me last week.
Mm-hmm.
Just a dreadful performance in a game that made all the sense in the world for that breakout performance, and it just wasn't there. It's been tough being a Christian Watson owner heavily. I mean, I look at some of my teams that I have him and some of the teams that I'm in really good spots that if he just gets me some juice. I mean, these teams could take the next level. So it's painful. That whole team right now, who I was very high on against most of the field, has just been very, very probably the biggest nerve pinched for me.
For what it's worth, Terp. For anybody who I just find it hilarious, not hilarious, sad that so many national people have not only written off Jordan Love, they've written off all his skill position players. They've written off Matt LaFleur. Like they're all busts and it's over. And that's simply not the case. Anybody who is saying that Jordan Love is not going to be a good quarterback in the NFL, that he's a bust, you are going off incomplete information. The situation he is in right now, go back and look. It is unprecedented in recent NFL history for a guy to not only have the youngest pass catchers maybe in NFL history, that's debatable. I don't know if they are, but they're darn close if they're not. But an offensive line that is missing David Bakhtiari, bad. That just veterans that are playing like garbage. He hasn't been able to. Green Bay does, and this is the other headline that gets me. I'm not turning into this a Packers thing, but I want to say this. Headlines like Packers not committed on Jordan Love ? Well, no kidding. They everybody else around him has been so bad. You don't know what they have in him. Aaron Rodgers, when he started his first year, he got the big contract after like 7 games because he had Donald Driver in the midst of his great career. Greg Jennings was coming off a 12 touchdown 12 touchdown season. Like he had, and the offensive line was like all these veterans, like Pro Bowlers too. Like the team was loaded then. The team is not loaded for Jordan Love. And until everybody else picks up their game, you just don't know what you have in Jordan Love. I do believe it's going to happen, Terp. I don't know how soon it's going to happen. I do believe it will, though.
There's 2 things I'll say before we move on from Jordan Love. The thing about Jordan Love, a positive and a negative. A positive is Andy Harmon, very good beat writer for, looks like the Packers. I follow him on Twitter. Does some great work on showing offensive line and what's going on. Some of these like blocking schemes and patterns and just overall effort from the offensive line has been completely dreadful. Like I'm talking about just like olaying guys by, just missing blocks, blocking each other, like just disgusting. The second thing, which is a negative, I saw a stat today on Twitter. Jordan Love with an empty pocket is the second worst quarterback in the league behind Kenny Pickett. That is definitely something that's alarming because you're getting, when the offensive line's blocking for you, you're not making the throws. And is that on Jordan Love? Of course. That's also on the receiving corps for not getting open. So, and the coaching staff for not scheming something up for the chances that he's getting, he needs to be better. So it's definitely a lot of worrisome right now in Green Bay, but I still like Jordan Love's potential. I don't know if he's going to get the opportunity. They could easily move on from him after this season and start over. I don't know what that would be. They're not in a really position to there's going to be so many bad teams to get one of these top quarterbacks that are coming out. So it could be another year of Jordan Love. Yeah. But if Christian Watson continues to play like he's doing, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, if these guys don't improve, guess what? Jordan Love's not going to improve either.
He's not
Aaron
going to improve
Jones can't stay on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, you're setting him up for disaster.
That's what's been so frustrating. And we'll, again, I could be wrong. I mean, here's the thing. Like, he could be a bust. I'm willing to admit that. Like, he might be a bust, and maybe history would dictate that he is. I think it's way too soon to make that call. He just has had nothing but a crumbling offense around him that is not doing him any favors. And it's very, very difficult to evaluate a quarterback in a situation like that. We got to move on here. Let's talk about Trey McBride here. What a boffo week Trey McBride had this past week. He looked great going forward. Now, Zach Ertz is on IR. When he comes back, you're probably going to see a downtick in targets. Cardinals are kind of in flux right now with trying to move on to Kyler Murray, trying to move on or move back to Kyler Murray, I would say, or I should say. But at the same time, it's not there yet. It's still Clayton Tune time. But Trey McBride, man, even with a young quarterback like Tune, this is a guy that's got to be out there in your FFPC lineups going forward.
not just got to be out there. I see him be a top 5 option the rest of the season. All things considered, I mean, how many guys can you actually say with confidence that you would take over him? I know last week is just but against a very good Ravens defense. We're not talking about like some schmoes on the other side. You obviously take Kelsey, you take Kittle, you take Andrews, guys like that. But how many other guys are you, Hawkinson? But how many guys are you taking Waller over McBride right now? Waller can't stay on the field, and
right.
The offense has been dreadful. You get on the list of Evan Ingram, Freiermuth obviously being hurt, Njoku, who's been terrible, obviously, a little banged up, and then the quarterback issues.
And he's picked it up a little bit with PJ Walker, but go
Correct,
ahead.
but like Dalton Kincaid is a name that you would put up there, but like how many guys are getting as many targets? How many guys have gotten many targets all season as Trey McBride got last week?
Yeah.
I'm all aboard the Trey McBride train. He's a guy that turned a very sad week last week in some leagues into very profitable. He's definitely a guy that had a monster game and just kept getting targets. And the one good thing about Jonathan Gannon and the Cardinals is they're throwing the ball to the tight end at a rapid rate. So I don't think that's going to stop with Tune. I don't think it's going to stop with Kyler. I hope it continues because Trey McBride is a potential league winner that if you got him a week early and he's not still out there, I mean, the thing about the max money you'd be spending on him right now if he was a free agent with the uncertainty of the tight end position. I got him in a bunch of leagues, last week before he got crazy. So it's definitely been positive. I hope it continues. All aboard Trey McBride.
I think the next question is, I think I've said this before on the show. I ask pretty much every guest co-host every week about Kyle Pitts, Terp. But you are special this week because now we get to ask you about where you stand on Kyle Pitts with Taylor Heineke throwing him the ball rather than Desmond Ridder.
It helps. Is it going to change anything? No. Arthur Smith's still an idiot. We know that. He's been proven to be an absolute. I said it since day one. Never backed off it. There was never a world where three guys were going to pay off their where they're getting drafted. Kyle Pitts was always Drake London for me, and Bijan Robinson has had flashes, but he hasn't been a first round pick. I mean, he's had moments, but he's not been league winner like everybody said he was going to be, and that's because his coach is an idiot. I mean, Arthur Smith is a terrible football coach. They're benching Desmond Ridder what's Taylor Heineke going to do for you? Yeah. I mean, is he better than Desmond Ridder? Yeah, probably. That doesn't take much. But, could he be helpful fantasy-wise? Yes. Hopefully he's when Drake London, he probably is going to miss this week, but he could help him. But, like, this is the coach is still playing Cordarrelle Patterson over Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
Hodge, Jonas Smith, Mac Hollins. I mean, you got three extremely talented guys, and you're playing these bums off the street over them. So when it comes down to it, will it help? Yes. Am I starting Kyle Pitts over Trey McBride if you gave me 100 leagues, I would never start Kyle Pitts over Trey McBride.
And I think that's what's interesting is Heineke is better suited to put the ball into playmakers' hands in better spots than I think Desmond Ridder was. He's willing to gunsling it. I mean, Heineke's favorite player growing up was Brett Favre, so he wants to throw it down the field. Will Arthur Smith let him do that? That's what we're going to find out this coming weekend. I want to pick one of these here going forward. Let's do Brock Purdy. Let's end up with Brock Purdy here.
You mean Brock Montana, right?
Yes, exactly. He is a player that I was very excited about at the end of last season and even the start of this season to the point where I was actually deploying him, starting him several weeks and felt pretty good about it. I had a lot of Purdy Cousins teams. I had a lot of Purdy Fields teams, and Purdy covered up a lot of warts that I had at the quarterback position when Fields went down, and now he's going to be forced to with Cousins out for the season. Where do you stand on Brock Purdy going forward? Because the last few weeks, Terp, he has not looked like the same quarterback that was lights out unbelievable at the end of the 2022 season.
Fantasy-wise, I think he's still fine. I think he's still a guy that you're going to play in there. The offense is explosive enough. They'll get Debo back after the bye. Kittle, Debo, McCaffrey, and Ayuk. You really can't get much better than that. But Purdy's hitting a little bit of a wall. I mean, losing 3 games in a row. It just, my eyes don't tell me that he's going to lead them to the Super Bowl. I've always said this from day one with the 49ers. They have all the talent in the world. Obviously, adding Chase Young at the deadline, that's great. But you just can't tell me that you think that Brock Purdy is going to come in to a place like Philadelphia and win in the playoffs. I just don't see it. I just don't. There's nothing about him screams elite. To me, he's just a very good game manager who is in the right system, and Kyle Shanahan is getting the best out of him. But when that system gets blown up a little bit, like it's been blown up the last 3 weeks, he can't overcome the issues that he has. So he has the greatness of McCaffrey. He has the greatness of Kittle. Ayuk has been great this year. Debo is obviously a monster, but when things go a little haywire and the defense isn't getting it done and giving you the big leads and giving you the protection and all that stuff, can this guy win you a Super Bowl? I don't see it.
That's the thing is Kyle Shanahan, and I saw this stat too, and I think it's correct that when he is trailing by 3 or more points heading into the fourth quarter, he's got like 1 win out of like 30 something. Like it's insane. And I think that's the thing. His offense and his team is built to be really, really tough to stop when they're going good and when they have the lead. When you have and your quarterback is I don't want to call him a robot, but he's just putting the ball where he needs to in every situation, not asked to be doing a lot more than that. But when you are losing and when you are facing adversity, that's the issue that comes in. Kyle Shanahan is a great coach for quarterbacks when they're ahead, but when you need that little extra oomph.
Did you see that stat this week? I saw it on Twitter. Yeah. He's like 1 or I think it was
that's
1
what I'm saying.
31.
Yes, it's insane. And I
couldn't believe that to actually be true. I had to look it up to make sure.
And is it true? I didn't look it up.
I didn't look it up either. But based off what I saw, it seemed like it was true. I saw it in a couple different spots. Mm-hmm. I looked at it a little bit, and if that's true, that's crazy. That's a death knell for the coach. I mean,
so the thing is with Purdy, it's like when he's playing from ahead and he's not having to force the ball down the field in the tight windows, he's great. But when, like you said, when he's asked to do a little bit more, that's when he gets in trouble, and that's why he's been turning the ball.
Some of them throws last week against the Bengals were really bad.
They were bad.
I mean, really bad. Like just mistakes you can't make on a team like that, that kind of weapons. I mean, that's a game that realistically Cincinnati gave him every chance to win, and he just couldn't get the job done at home too. It wasn't like they were in the cold, of the East Coast. It was at home, and to lose a game like that, we talk about home field advantage. Like obviously, it's something you're looking ahead at in the playoffs, but I mean, playing Philadelphia in San Francisco is a lot different than playing Philadelphia at home.
I want to get to Josh on YouTube, his question. We don't have time to analyze it, but I would rather have the Aaron Jones, DeMario Douglas side of that trade in a 20-team
100%
PPR league over Josh Jacobs and Josh Reynolds. That's what we're going to say. And good luck with you on that, Josh. Let's get into our final segment. We'll step out, take a quick break. We come back. Your starts and sit questions answered by Dave Terpoilli from the FFPC. I'm Eric Balkman from the FFPC, HSFF, our RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Better Sports Network. The HSFF show rolls on right here on the Better Sports Network right after this. Don't go anywhere.
From the Hometown Hero series, Zach Parise.
That is a very nice card, and that's one I'm probably going to have to organize a little trade ski with you, because I would actually like that card.
You got downtown Newark in the background. I mean, Newark has never looked so good.
No, it is not.
We'll put that back up on the screen. I just want to have a penny sleeve ready, and yes, we can absolutely work out a little trade ski for that, because that belongs in a Devil fans collection right there.
I'll trade you the Braden Schneider rookie card for it.
Done.
There we go. The first card-for-card trade on Rip and Riff history. And it was that easy.
It was that easy. That's because, you know what? Because neither one of us are jerks. And it's the same thing when we try and do fantasy trades. Like, we don't try and screw each other. We have conversations. If there's a fit, there's a fit. If it's not, it's not. We don't try and, take the other one over the barrel. So there you go. In a penny sleeve. Hometown hero, Zach Parise. He was among the league's most productive goal scorers in 06-07 and followed up with a terrific regular season with an even more impressive postseason. And then they talk about what he did in the first round series against Tampa Bay that year. So that's off to the side for you.
That's true. And, if this is it for his career, he had a hell of a career.
He did.
Hopefully he comes back one more year with the Islanders, but if he doesn't, hell of a run.
It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show on Better Sports Network.
In case you hadn't heard, let me tell you a little bit about the Fantasy Alarm All Pro subscription. You can get it now and unlock all the content for all the sports in all the annual draft guides is what you're going to get as well. One-on-one expert access in the Discord. You can actually league sync as well. Analyze matchups and the trends in your leagues. Integrated with Fanjections is the lineup generator, so you're going to get that as well. Daily rankings, weekly rankings, the value vault, position coaches in there as well. Waiver wire analysis, ownership percentages, projections, stats, and tools at your disposal. You can build better lineups, guaranteed. Get access to everything Fantasy Alarm offers all year long. Go all pro now and save an extra $100 when you unlock all access all year. Just use the promo code LOCK at fantasyalarm.com/lock. That's promo code LOCK, LOCK, fantasyalarm.com/lock. Want to welcome back in Dave Terpoilli at Dave Terp on the X machine. Dave famously ran the FFPC social media. Do you still chime in every so often on there, or are these just all Aiden X's now?
Most of the time it's Aiden. Every once in a while I'll throw something up there just when he's sleeping so he doesn't see it.
Right. Yeah.
But most of the time he tries to keep a clean page, and I just let him do his thing now. He does a great work. So every once in a while I try to slip something through. This week it's Dallas Eagles week, so I might, if I'm at the game, which I'm going to be on Sunday, tailgating, there might some might slip up there. And, try to, when he's sleeping, and try to get the blood flowing a little bit. Because I remember years past, we've got some great conversations going, making fun of Cowboys fans. And I know there's a lot of you out there that are really excited to come into Philadelphia this week. You're salivating over the Eagles secondary, but we all know how this is going to end. And that's the Dallas loss.
Aiden LaCorey is who we're referring to, the FFPC media coordinator. Follow him on Twitter, on the X, quarter in the jar, Balky. AIDANLIQUORIE, Aiden LaCorey, FFPC social media maven, does a ton of stuff for the FFPC as well. Sorry about this. My
great ringtone.
Yeah, thank you. I switched it. I had do you watch SNL Terp at all?
Sometimes, not recently though.
So do you know this was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, the David Pumpkins sketch with Tom Hanks for Halloween. I'm not going to go into it, but it was a real bizarre sketch, and there was this stock music that went along with it, and that was my ringer for Halloween because it was a Halloween sketch. But now with the calendar turning to November, I had to come up with something, and I just went with Biggie.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Always a classic, yeah. All right, let's go into the Week 9 lineup advice to help out all the FFPC players and everybody who's hanging out watching us tonight, as well as watching the Titans and the Steelers. I believe the Titans, yes. 36-yard field goal for Nick Folk is good. 7-3 Pittsburgh, 2:48 to go in the first quarter. Steelers about to get the ball back. Deontay Johnson already 2 catches for 32 yards. Derrick Henry 4 carries for 12 yards. And they did a little trickeration on this last drive where DeAndre Hopkins actually wanted to pass it on a backwards pass. Nobody was open. And then he ended up running it for, God, I don't know, maybe about 7 or 8 yards or so. So it was still a gain on the play. Very interesting to see DeAndre Hopkins scrambling, looking to throw downfield. Always fun. All right, Tank Dell or Michael Thomas. Let's get into it here. Michael Thomas this week is playing the Chicago Bears at home. Tank Dell is also at home. He's against the Buccaneers. You can only play one Terp. Who's it going to be?
I'm going to go against what most people would say here, and I'm going to go with Tank Dell. I think with Robert Woods being out, Stroud coming off a very suspect game, they try to get the ball to the explosive rookie, him and Nico Collins. I think we talked about Tampa Bay against the run. It's not pretty. So I feel like this is a Stroud type of game. It's Tank Dell for me. The Bears, the Bears-Saints game is definitely something that's just – I have a lot of guys, in both sides with DJ Moore and Kamara and Olave, who's sour subject. But it's a game flow type of situation there with Tyson Bagent as the quarterback. Mm-hmm. It's just hard to get on board with Michael Thomas having that elite game. I think Tank Dell gets there, and he's my pick.
Tank Dell, it's weird. The Texans are actually 3-point. I guess they're at home. And then CJ Stroud has them playing pretty well. They're 3-point favorites against the Baker Mayfield-led Buccaneers. That is a 1:00 p.m. Sunday afternoon game, which, by the way, I keep forgetting to mention this, and I'll mention it one more time before the end of the show. Get your lineups in early. We have a 9:30 a.m. kickoff in Germany
100%.
Between the Dolphins and Chiefs. So set them set them Saturday night if you can, early Sunday morning. is when you want to make that happen. Remember, for the FFPC waiver process, you won't be able to pick up any Chiefs or Dolphins this week because of that early start.
We have some great football this weekend. Obviously, Chiefs.
It's going to be fantastic.
The Chiefs, we got the Bills, Bengals, and then we got Eagles, Cowboys. I mean, we have not just for fantasy football, we have NFL, just powerhouses colliding.
What about this? Chris Lude, by the way, we'll chime in on his question. What happens if it is indeed Brett Rippon at Lambeau Field for the Rams on Sunday? Would you play Puka Nacua in that case over Christian Watson, or would you go back to Watson over Nacua?
I looked at what Dallas did last week, just absolutely killed the Rams through the air. It makes too much sense for the Packers to do the same thing. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to, but to me, it's Christian Watson, if Stafford doesn't play. If Stafford plays, which he's probably not going to, it's Puka. You can't sit him. I mean, he's been, a gem this year. And Watson's been a dud, but based off the question, it's Christian Watson for me.
I think for me, I'm still going to say Nacua. I just think that Sean McVay is intelligent enough, regardless of who the quarterback is. He's intelligent enough to scheme these guys open, and I think Nacua still gets open. And they find a way for him to be productive. I've been saying, basically all week that. In the last couple of weeks, you break ties against Green Bay Packers right now because that offense has not been good.
And that's fair.
Yeah, that's where I stand on it, and I could be wrong, but that's how I would roll with it. Gerald Everett, who was actually working on the side today with Donald Parham. Again, this is sort of their Wednesday practice since they play on Monday Night Football. Would you play Gerald Everett against the Jets, or would you rather play Tyler Higbee this week, Terp? Tyler Higbee, who I'm actually going to be forced to play in one of my leagues because I have Sam Laporta on a bye. Tyler Higbee at the Packers. Which one would you rather play there, Everett or Higbee?
I would stream somebody else, but if I had a gun to my head, it would be Higbee, not by preference. I mean, Everett's banged up. Jets defense is no joke. There's just a lot of potential to be, ugliness there. So to me, it's Higbee. But if I was me, I'd probably find somebody else. In both of them.
It's not great. And obviously this is more of a question for like your secondary flex in FFPC. I would probably lean. Well, the thing is you're going to have to watch the injury reports and see what Everett's doing. And if it's not much, then you're probably going to have to roll with Higbee. But my gut still probably says Higbee.
The reason with Higbee, if I had to go one-on-one, is because young quarterback, Brett Rippon, probably not going to be forcing the ball down the field a lot. You can see some dump off, some short passes to Higbee. He can get there by accident, just in an ugly type of situation. But that's not with any confidence. Again, I'd stream somebody else than either of them. The
Steelers have just punted the ball back to the Titans. It is going to be 1st and 10 for Tennessee from their own 18, $1:53 still to go in the first quarter. And the BettorCast is live. If you're not in there, hop in there right now. Jordan Love or Gardner Minshew? This is an interesting one because I don't know. I just feel like the last few weeks, there's been a lot of people in Northeast Wisconsin saying, this is the week. Okay, it didn't happen against the Raiders. Okay, it didn't happen against the Broncos. Okay, it didn't happen against the Vikings. But this is going to be the week that Jordan Love and the offense clicks. I'm still Team Minshew here. It's close, but I would rather play Minshew at Carolina rather than Jordan Love at home against the Rams.
I lean that way too. I mean, it's neither way. I'm not confident in either matchup. They're both the Love just offense has been terrible, and just Minshew. Carolina's defense is scrappy. You don't see a lot of games when they're in shootouts. So Minshew's upside's a little limited, but I'm still taking Minshew. I just think he's just a little bit better of an option.
We can't do it anymore. I just realized this, but I had one Jerome Ford or Najee Harris. Well, Harris is playing right now. We kind of already talked about Jerome Ford earlier in the show anyway, so that we could move past that. But let's get to Jordan Addison versus Zach Moss. Now, this is two fluid situations right
These are all really freaking tough. I mean, there's no easy one. Yeah.
Let's just look at this for a second. Jordan Addison this week is playing. The Vikings have the Falcons. And that game is in Atlanta, and it is going to be Jalen Hall. Why did I forget this?
Jared Hall? I don't know his
Jared
name.
Hall? Jared Hall?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Better off not knowing.
Yes. We'll know it. That Jaron Hall, by the way, is his name. We'll know it this week, and then it'll be hopefully Dobbs next week for all of us who have Hawkinson and Addison and Osborne and all those other guys. Okay. So you have a situation where Jordan Addison is going to be catching balls from Jaron Hall against the Falcons this week, or Zach Moss, who is still, I hesitate to use the word timeshare, but there is a split in the backfield. It's clearly not an even split anymore, as Jonathan Taylor has really taken over as far as catches and carries there. If you had to play with one of these guys in your flex spot, Terp, who would it be between Addison and Zach Moss? Really a tough one to analyze right now.
Zach Moss has been a massive annoyance since Jonathan Taylor has come back. I mean, you always sit him, and he's been good. Like he's not been great, but he's been serviceable as a RB2 or a flex option. So it's just Jonathan Taylor just takes up so much of the work. To me, this one's easy. It's Jordan Addison. Even with their unknown at quarterback, you would think he gets a ton of targets. It's Jordan Addison for me.
All right, so I think you're right, but this could be one of the. Addison's just had like this magnet to the end zone the last few games, and this could come down to, whoever scores a touchdown this week. Full PPR, I think I'm going to lean towards Addison, but it would not surprise me to see Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor both have big weeks at Carolina this week as well. But I'm with you. I think it's going to be Addison. Rashee Rice is in Germany for the Sunday morning game against the Miami Dolphins. If you had to play him, and this is FFPC scoring, we're gonna ask this question: Rashee Rice, or is it Dalton Schultz this week? Dalton Schultz for the Texans is actually going to be at no, he's at home. Beg your pardon, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Terp, Rashee Rice or Dalton Schultz?
Rice, and it's not close. I think Rice is in a great spot this week in a game that should be high-scoring affair. Both teams should be going up and back. Obviously, with Tyreek Hill on the other side, Kansas City's going to have to keep up. I mean, I expect Tyreek Hill to just go nuclear against his old team. But to me, Rice, he's starting to play more. He's starting to get the command with Mahomes. The team's starting to trust him more. To me, he's their best receiver. And I don't think it's close right now. Obviously not named Travis Kelce. With all the direct with Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney and all those guys. It's Rice, and it's not close for me. This is probably the easiest one out of the bunch.
So, why does Rice to you stand out more than the other Chiefs receivers? Like, Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Kadarius Toney and
Justin Watson. They're just annoying.
Yeah. Like, why? Because I know there's this groundswell for Rashee Rice right now, and I guess maybe I don't see it as much as other people do.
I just think the big playability is there. I mean, he's starting to get the trust and the targets from Mahomes, and that's a big thing, obviously, with this type of offense. I mean, Andy Reid, he needs playmakers, and they thought they had one with Sky Moore. He's been terrible. They thought they got one with Kadarius Toney. He's terrible. So that's to me, that's the only thing holding the Chiefs back right now. Their team is just as good as they've always been, but they just don't have that receiver that can do the job. And these guys they're not even just doing the job average. They don't need anybody to be super. They've just been so bad between the Toney and Sky Moores of the world that I just think Rice is just so much better right now. And yeah, MVS is going to get his annoying touches and Justin Watson, but they're not fantasy guys. I feel like Rice is a guy that can take it to the next level and possibly be $1 million winner down the road.
So there was a penalty against Chigakonkwo tonight, holding, which is going to be a 4-yard penalty because it was half the distance to the goal. And then there was just now a big play from the 5-yard line. Will Levis hits DeAndre Hopkins over the middle. God, that looked like a 30-yard play right around there, I think, as Hopkins takes the ball all the way up to about the 35-yard line. So it was about a 30-yard pass play. And the Steelers do have a linebacker down right now. I did not see who it is. But the Titans are in business here as they are at their own 35-yard line, 1st and 10, as they stepped out for a break here. Nobody knows I'm on air. Everybody's calling me tonight. I don't understand.
I love it.
It's okay. Final one here. Royce Freeman against the Packers in Green Bay, or Cole Kmet. Again, we're going to assume FFPC scoring here. Cole Kmet, who is down in New Orleans, taking on the Saints. Which one of those guys would you rather start?
This is definitely the ugliest out of all of them. Cole Kmet is my answer, just for the FFPC scoring. In a game flow, they should be behind against a better Saints team. You would think they get a lead, and it's just, dink and dunk to Kmet. I think this one's pretty easy too. Royce Freeman, he's not better than Darrell Henderson, so it just comes down to, will he get a touchdown dependent play? And I don't see it. To me, this is Kmet, and by a good margin.
Terp, let's say you had both Freeman and Henderson on your team.
Henderson.
It's Henderson. Okay.
It's
all
Henderson.
Right. Makes sense. That will complete our tonight's show. Terp, I cannot thank you enough for popping on here. Always good to talk ball with you. I wish you nothing but good luck in Week 9. Enjoy the Cowboys-Eagles game from the link that on Sunday, which is going to be a blast. And we will continue to follow you on the X at Dave Terp. Don't be a stranger. We'll talk again real soon.
See you guys.
All right. Dave Terpoilli, ladies and gentlemen, the FFPC's own Dave Terpoilli, joining me on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show right here on the Better Sports Network. So I do want to thank Terp. I want to thank our producer tonight, Anthony Rivera, who was tremendous as well. We will be back at 7 p.m. Eastern time for 2 hours again next week, 7 to 9, taking you in to the Thursday night football game. 4 for 4's John Daigle is actually going to be my guest co-host next week. Always fun to chop it up with him. Go to myffpc.com to play the FFPC Weekly Challenge. No draft, no salary cap. You can choose 10 players if you want to play without kickers and defenses, or 12 if you want to play with kickers and defenses by kickoff on Sunday, and then you just watch them ride throughout the weekend's games. Remember, only one player per team. You can enter for as little as $35. You can win as much as $2,500. myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Again, friendly reminder, 9:30 a.m. kickoff from Frankfurt, Germany, and it's a big one. Chiefs and Dolphins, get your lineup submitted Saturday night if possible. Otherwise, really, really early Sunday morning. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. The best of the Better Sports Network is up next. I'll see you in the BettorCast. I'm Eric Balkman. Thank you so much for watching.